let's get into the Dolphins now. I know you're dying to. So you mentioned that secondary. Ramsey had a down year last year. I think a big part of that was because the Rams just were bad as collectively. So
Yeah.
I don't buy that Jalen Ramsey's just cooked now. Like after he was the best corner in the league 14 months ago, or even less than that. I think he's going to have, maybe he's not the best corner in the league, but I think he's going to be a very good number one corner again, especially with Xavier Howard, as long as he can stay healthy. Maybe Xavier Howard isn't as good as he once was, but even just the presence of him on the other side is going to help Jalen Ramsey a lot. When you look at this Dolphins defense, you brought in Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator. That's a huge hire, as you know.
Yeah.
What is your expectation? Because I think it'd be fair to have high expectations.
Oh, I'm expecting a top 10 defense. You bring in Vic Fangio, who is like widely regarded as one of the best defensive coaches in the league right now. And all of these great players like Bradley Chubb, Jalen Ramsey, like you need to do well, especially with some of the good, like a lot of the good players you already have, like Christian Wilkins. Xavier Howard, unfortunately, he had multiple groin injuries last year, wasn't really up to speed. But I expect big things out of the defense, and I think they can get it done. It's just that we need injuries to go our way as well a little bit.
Yeah, looking at your secondary, it gets me excited. Javon Holland, another guy you didn't mention, another great player. And then you took Cam Smith with your first draft pick. We talked a little bit about this when we talked about the drafts, but with him coming in there as another corner, and then Nick Needham's still there, just there's a potential this Dolphins secondary is one of the very best shutdown secondaries in the league. But like we said, just like the Bills, I mean, it's about staying healthy, I guess.
No, absolutely. That's like the thing with I was actually reading an article about it today. Xavier Howard, he was like very blunt about it. He was like, yeah, I just had a few injuries, but I had to play through them because our depth was just worn thin. And, hopefully after he got surgery this offseason, hopefully he can just get back to even close to the level he was at. I just think the reason people like, especially him and Ramsey, people want to write them off quickly because they're so enamored with Sauce Gardner because he's the new hot young corner who's like really good. Like he's rising up. Like
Jalen Ramsey, yeah.
he was what Jalen Ramsey was exactly. And people just want to be like, Ramsey's had a down year. But, as a lot of people also pointed out, Ramsey's down year was other guys' best year of their career.
Right.
So I think just like you were saying, the Rams kind of just sucked as a whole. So I think it's kind of unfair for you to be like, Ramsey's fallen off. And
Yeah.
I think Sauce Gardner, he is great, but it was his first year. You got like, don't heap all these expectations on this poor kid and then suddenly he's going to let you down next season. And, like that's not fair to him because I think he's great. I think he's a great guy. DJ Reed, also excellent second corner next to him. But
This
Javon
division has a ton of great secondary players. Even the Patriots are still kicking.
Yeah, I mean, they have Kyle Duggar. Kyle Duggar is pretty good.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest breakout I'm expecting this year is Javon Holland. I fully expect him to leap into that top 5 safety conversation this year. I think he has shown all the flashes of it and he has the tools. And I think Fangio can really bring that out of him.
Yeah, I mean, Fangio, we saw what he did with guys like Justin Simmons, Kareem Jackson in the past. He has Eddie Jackson in Chicago. So I think it's very possible. And I think I would be surprised if he's not a Pro Bowl caliber. Well, I don't care about the Pro Bowl. Let's say all pro caliber player. Pro Bowls doesn't matter. But you get what I'm saying. An elite safety start to get that recognition that you want him to. What do you think about this front seven? Now, you made some interesting moves. I mean, last year, the trade for Bradley Chubb was huge. I think it's just unfortunate that the Dolphins were in contention mode last year. They gave up that pick to get Bradley Chubb, and that's when Tua kind of got hurt once again, and kind of the last month of your season kind of didn't go where you wanted to. This is going to be the year I think Bradley Chubb's addition, alongside Jalen Phillips on the edge, really starts to make an impact.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. I think Bradley Chubb, he himself was also saying, he's like, yeah, like being here with Fangio again, like he was a big influence on me when I was in Denver. And like, that's going to be huge for them as well. So I think that's like really exciting, especially with Jalen Phillips on the other side. Jalen Phillips is also an excellent player. Really excited about what he's bringing to the table this year. I think he's just kept improving year after year. I feel really good about David Long and Jerome Baker. I think those are two guys who are a little underrated. Jerome Baker, he comes in, gets the job done. He's really good at run stuffing. And David Long, apparently, he's very underrated according to his stats. So I'm really excited about what like they can bring. And I think the front seven's a lot better than some people might think.
Yeah, even Christian Wilkins you mentioned earlier. Didn't Christian Wilkins have like 95 tackles as a defensive end last year or
Yeah.
something crazy.
I believe he like set a record for like
Yeah,
defensive tackles or something like that.
yeah, that's crazy. So Agba's still there. Yeah, I look top to bottom. I guess the concern would be Howard and Ramsey, but I'm more confident in them than the Bills guys overall. And I think this defense will be. I mean, you said top 10. I think you're being modest. I think you know that. I'm looking at top 5 for this team. I think I see Miami. Well, we can get in the offense now. I see them as a surefire playoff team. I don't. You almost were that last year before the Tua situation kind of went off the rails. And I guess we can start with him there on the offense. Just what's your confidence level like with Tua right now? Because if this team's going to be a playoff team, he's going to have to, well, not only perform but also stay on the field.
I'm very confident in his playing abilities. I know a lot of people like to say, oh, he's no Joe Burrow, he's no Justin Herbert. And that's fine. They're all drafted near each other. They're always going to get those comparisons. But I think Tua can play well enough to what we need him to play. I think, unfortunately, the problem is the concussions because, as a lot of people know, once you get one, you're more susceptible to getting them continuously after that. But I'm not really worried about like his level of play. I think the problem is more what happens if he's not playing. And I think that's kind of the concern, which is why they kind of brought in Mike White, who, if anything goes wrong, can hopefully just keep the ship afloat enough to get back to land.
Prime time, Mike White.
But apparently it's kind of interesting because the reports coming out of camp are that Skylar Thompson's giving him a good run for his money. They really like, just like the arm.
Many loves Skylar Thompson.
I mean, I get it. Like considering we almost beat the Bills with Skylar Thompson at quarterback, like we lost by a field goal, and that's not to speak ill of the Bills. I think they still played a great game, but I think it shows just how good our offense can be, and I think that hopefully, with Tua playing the whole year, our offense is even going to even be even better, and I think offense and defense should both be top 10. And as you're saying, they should be top 5, but you like to be cautiously optimistic. So I'm going to say top 10 for both of them.
Okay, Tua last year when he was on the field, best quarterback rating in the league, at least for starting quarterbacks. And it just, I mean, obviously we have Waddle and Hill. It's going to be easy for a quarterback, but not just that. They just made it. They made everything run so seamlessly. It just felt like, at least those first 2 months of the season when things were going well. I just feel like the way for this offense to stay efficient is, I mean, Hill and Waddle help each other get open. Obviously, you can't double either of them because the other guy will be so wide open. But I do think they just have a well balanced look. Even the running back room, everybody does different things. We talked about Devin Achane before when we did the draft podcast. But to reiterate, like, what are you thinking from this run game, this offensive line? Like, I still don't think it's going to be heavily used because of how good your pass game is. But what are you expecting from that group?
I expect them to, because it was more towards the end of the season, they started using the running backs a bit more, and you saw more of what they were capable of. But unfortunately, we didn't really stick to it. And even McDaniels himself has said that. He's like, yeah, I didn't stick to the run game enough. That's why we brought back everyone from last year, because it wasn't that they were playing badly. It's that we weren't committing enough to using them. The one thing that has me a little concerned is that we didn't invest more into the offensive line. They're really just banking on a lot of the guys we've drafted or are developing to really like continue going, because they're hoping that by bringing in good coaches, it's going to help kind of fix those issues. And although I do appreciate the optimism, I'm a little concerned that we didn't bring in someone else at least a little more established, especially with Teron Armstead oftentimes being injured. So I think that's something that's like my biggest concern about this team, to be honest, is the offensive line not developing the way everyone's hoping.
I agree. I know you like, it's not that Liam Eichenberg and Robert Hunt are like bad players, but they're not, I don't view them as, solidifying that offensive line. It still feels bottom half of the league to me. You did sign Connor Williams, but I don't know. It just doesn't, you're banking on Austin Jackson getting better, and you're banking on Teron Armstead staying healthy as he continues to age. But I guess that's why it's a good thing that, I mean, you obviously got to protect Tua, but at the same time, O-line is kind of more important for the run game, at least in most cases, I feel like. So I don't know. I think pass heavy is the move for the Dolphins, though.
Yeah, no, it definitely is, but hopefully they develop, because I think that's like the big thing was that the offensive line was not creating holes for the running backs, and because people knew our running backs weren't really getting touches. They were more able to focus in on, Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and stuff like that. But, I think something that's really going to help is I think like an underrated signing was like Robbie Anderson. Apparently
Okay,
he's been playing really well in camp,
really.
and a third guy to stretch the field doesn't hurt.
I really liked Robbie Anderson like 2 years ago. I don't know what happened, but okay, if he can somehow turn it around, that would be great.
I feel like the combination of having bad quarterbacks, like it just creates kind of like a bad attitude, and that's kind of seemed what happened last year was that he got kind of like snippy with the team, and it became a whole thing. But
Yeah.
I think, and I'm not saying he's like a huge deal, but I think he's going to help stretch the field more, and I think that should be helpful in the sense that like if people are keying in on the pass game, having a third speedster should hopefully help open things up maybe with the offense.
Well, they paid a bunch of money for Cedric Wilson. I mean, not a bunch, but
Yeah.
they gave him a long-term contract. It'd be nice to see him, now that Trent Sherfield's gone. He
Yeah.
is who I would bank on for receiver three. Honestly, actually, I like all these guys. Braxton Berrios as well. That was an all
Mhm.
first team all pro return guy a couple years ago. So I think you got a good balance of like if Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle unfortunately get injured, I don't think you're in a terrible spot, at least from a versatility standpoint. I want to
No,
correct you though. It's not Robbie Anderson. It's Robbie Chosen.
you're right. You're right.
This is like Darius Leonard turning into Shaq Leonard, but like 10 times goofier.
Yeah, because that was like a chosen thing. That wasn't like, oh yeah, my name's actually Shaq, by the way, just so everyone knows.
Right, right.
But no,
So,
I'm very optimistic about the team. I think it really just comes down to can the O line play well enough? I don't even want them to play great, just good enough to get the job done.
right.
And can the guys we need to stay healthy stay healthy?